Hey everybody, welcome to Public Access America's
Just the Tip.
Hey, do you have any Just the Tips before we sign off?
I would say my Just the Tip is make sure you do like regular maintenance, especially for yourself. It's important. Keeps your head in the right spot.
I love that. Thanks for being here, Jeffrey. I love you.
Love you too.
It is time now for something positive.
We might be headed to the promised land,
speaking the truth and finding our external liberty once we internally liberate ourselves.
Problem can only be solved when there is a kind of coalition of conscience.
Because that is how it works.
This is the beginning, it is not the finale, and that's why we're here, and that's why we rally.
We've got to be that creative minority.
Find a way to get in the way. I got in trouble. It was good trouble. It was necessary trouble.
Frankly, I know we've got to do something.
So here's my question about agriculture. Right now, the number one producer of wheat is fighting the number two producer of wheat. And the only way out of it, and what the U.S. is doing, is by unrelying on foreign resources and shortening supply chains, which we've talked about, which I find fascinating. But we need to create a new source of a supply chain here in the lack of wheat, because our grocery bills are going to go up because everything's made with flour and carbs and wheat, So can a farmer in the United States that grows soybeans or corn or potatoes suddenly say, I'm going to grow wheat? Is that possible? Like in the off season to plan and predict, like right now, could they say, we got to put in wheat? No.
Couple of reasons. Number one, the assumption that the equipment for picking potatoes versus picking wheat,
totally different.
Not the same.
No.
Could you have somebody go, instead of planting barley, I'm going to plant wheat? Yeah.
Okay.
That's you have to, if you're going to do that, you have to find similar crops.
Okay.
But on the second side of this too, what we have is an issue with the fact that we can't grow on off season. So wheat needs, warm summer weather in order to, grow, ripen, harvest.
Right. Okay.
And you can't do that over the course of the winter. Now, if you could come up with a winter crop that you could, say, grow, harvest, and then, till under, which I wouldn't recommend necessarily, but harvest, get down to, stubble or whatever, and then plant wheat, could you do it? Potentially. Realistically, no, because at least with things like barley and durum and other grains like that.
I love durum.
Oats. You have a very similar crop system. You have a very similar planting system. You could do that, but therein lies the rub. Is that from changing from one crop to another, you're now creating a shortage of another crop. So how do you solve for that?
Right.
How do you solve for that? And this is where, I'm going to go back to my good old favorite, the one that, everybody sees as the boogeyman, but it's really not. And it's genetic modification. The answer is not simply that,
I'm for it.
It's not simply to just grow more crop. There is that issue. But when you look at the way that supply lines are threatened, when you look at the way that, we're going to be growing food, you have to have the ability, especially in a scenario where, we're looking at how the climate is disrupting certain industries. You have to have the ability to, essentially hedge those issues. You have to have grain in storage. You have to have not just enough crop to feed you for the year, but to feed you for however long, to avoid famines. or with the understanding that you're going to see, the amount of crop that you grow dissipate,
Right.
and that you're going to be eating into your savings, your national savings, while still producing. And so it's a matter of how do you keep that supply line met.
I think pe- I think
That's
I think people forget that wheat and grains is the fuel industry of the body, whereas oil is for the mechanical stuff we build. Like wheat and grains, that's what fuels humanity. And that's going to be a
well,
disruption too in an already inflated economy, you know?
right. Well, and that's where this gets really interesting. We're growing wheat because it's the one thing that we're used to. But here's the real question: is it the grain that we should be growing? I think that's a
That's
better
a great
question.
question. Yeah.
And I don't have an answer for that, to be perfectly honest. And that's something that we need to, we really need to be looking at. And yeah, does that mean that things would taste different, be different, feel different? Absolutely.
Hmm.
But the question is, would you have the food sources secured and supplied for you?
Right.
Like, the thing about oats is, like, freaking oats grow like wildfire. Like, that's one of those things.
Right.
It's great, but at the same time too, if that's not what you're looking for in terms of, your food source, that's, going to create some problems. Personally, I love, things like using oat flour and things like that. It has a nice sweet texture to it.
Oh
But it's
yeah.
also, but because it's not very glutinous, it creates a denser bread.
Right. Give me
You
coconut
know,
flour, by the way. It just adds this
coconut.
moisture. And yeah, it's also gluten free.
Um, Spelt is one of my favorite grains.
Ooh.
Um, it tastes so good to me. I love it.
Right. Oh, I don't know.
So
People,
so the question, I think that is the question that we have to be asking ourselves. It's not that, my family are wheat farmers. There's no question about that. And
so you've put
wheat
thought
is,
into this.
absolutely, because your survival as a farmer depends on your ability
Yeah,
to grow a crop that is going to produce enough crop that is going to have a price that you can sell and survive at.
that's right.
Now,
You could make a
and
penny on corn or a dollar on wheat, right? If wheat's in
you could make
demand, if soy's in demand, you know.
yeah, you could make a penny on corn and a dollar on wheat, but on when you look at the per acre, if I'm going to grow a dollar's worth of wheat, then I have to grow a dollar's worth of wheat on the same set of is on the same acreage that I would grow a dollar's worth of corn, and then you have to
Right,
look at your inputs from there.
right.
And that's the difference is that, as a dryland farmer, you know, trying to grow wheat is never going to work
Yeah.
for a dryland farmer, or trying to grow corn is never going to work for a dryland farmer. You're never going to have the moisture that you need in order to grow a decent crop. But growing
Oh,
wheat, on the other hand, very easy. Now the question is even in those dryland scenarios, are there crops that, number one, fare better, number two, produce more, number three,
sure.
could at least offer a price point that would be competitive to wheat,
Dry
and
cotton.
would provide potentially a more predictable and stable cash crop?
Right.
That is the question that every farmer, if they're thinking about their existence and survival as a farmer, is going to be thinking about. It's not just simply the fact that they're producing wheat, it's that is the crop that I'm producing sustainable? Am I going to be able to continue my operations? Am I going to be able to sell this crop? And that's where you've had so many different fad crops come in different places at different times, and it they're pain. Some of them are great and they make great money, but they're a pain in the ass. Some of
Right.
them not so great. Garbanzo beans, one of my personal favorites. You can make a killing off of garbanzo beans. It's
Mm,
it's fantastic. The problem is that it's a pain in the ass, and more often than not, you have a lot of equipment issues with it.
right.
Because especially as wheat farmers, you're really focused more on your system working for wheat, and so when you have to retool it for garbanzo beans or chickpeas, um, it becomes a pain in the ass.
Mm, I love the chickpea. God bless the chickpea. So you're
Chickpea
saying
is great.
you're saying our dietary desires should be based more on what could be producible instead of producers trying to keep up with the demand of just desire.
I think that's from the consumer side of it. we have to start looking at the expectation of what is going to be able to be produced and be
Right.
readily
But
available.
we should be happy with an influx of strawberries over oranges one year. We should be happy with
Absolutely.
an influx of avocados over I don't know squash. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
if it's the season for squash, maybe Americans should be getting more squash recipes instead of paying more for potatoes. You know what I
That's
mean?
like, like right now, for example, like I mean, we do have those expectations on a small scale. So, like for example, right about now is going to be the peak for asparagus harvest, and you'll see during this time that there's going to be a lot of places and a lot of people are going to be serving asparagus. If you've ever gone to a restaurant and you see on the menu they will have seasonal vegetables, what they're doing is they're setting the expectation that whatever vegetables you're going to be get during that time frame are going to be freshly harvested vegetables that are grown and harvested during that time frame. So the idea is that by looking at having your dietary needs change with the season, and being able to understand that you're going to meet certain expectations of providing certain foods during seasons, it's something that we've already started to look at least in a consumer realm. Might not necessarily be so much consumer driven as it is, hey, what do I have the ability to access? But the expectation is there by restaurants saying, quote unquote, and seasonal vegetables.
Right.
So then the question becomes, we don't necessarily think of wheat as a seasonable as a seasoned
Right. A seasonable
seasonable.
commodity.
Exactly. And the reason why is because we can generally grow it more than enough to serve,
Sure.
to feed us throughout an entire year.
It's a
But
biblical stock, you know. We're always gonna have it. I mean,
but the
it's what
question
killed the
becomes,
Egyptians, isn't it?
but the question then becomes is if wheat or any number of crops becomes less than sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
what is the suitable replacement for it?
Exactly
And
like the
that's
banana, right? We need to have a wheat crop that's similar to the banana.
or and that's in the past what we had done was we looked for different plants, different uh,
Mm-hmm.
we looked at different replacement plants that were pretty much within the same family. So like the banana that essentially went extinct because of the fungus, now you have a different banana. Bananas supposedly in the 1950s tasted much different. They're much
Oh yeah.
sweeter, I guess,
Oh yeah.
um compared to the bananas that we have now. Now the
Wait,
question.
sweeter more sooner. Like you didn't have to let them age like you do these. They didn't have to get quite as yellow to be as sweet. But whatever.
and
Anyway.
so and and so that there comes the question is that you know we have all of these crops currently.
Mm-hmm.
Genetic modification, genetic engineering is doing things like making them fungus resistant.
Right.
And how do we do that with, say, bananas, for example? Could we bring back dead varieties that worked in hardier times, but for whatever reason, um, they essentially went close to extinct
Right.
because they just weren't viable given a certain time frame,
Because of the fungus.
a
Right.
certain climate. So could you genetically engineer some of these old varieties to be hardier
Yeah,
and bring them back?
to grow in our region or even Mexico's region would reduce the supply
Hmm.
chain. That would be so cool. And then yeah, like your local community farmers are going to have shipments of whatever grew best in your area at the time. Support that. Find out what your local commodities are and support that so that your local farmers know what to grow. And in Florida, we have over 86,000 farms because we have a great season for it. You know what I mean? And so I really
Hmm.
love saying do that. Like going to a farmer's market is one thing. They're trying to figure out what you're going to buy so they know what to grow on a small scale. But if they could know what their community is going to buy and grow for that, you would have more diversity in the farms because farms could be covering different things, you know?
Hmm.
How do you feel about biofuels? Like growing food specifically for fuel instead of to feed people?
I think, unfortunately, like I think the promise of it was not as good as we would have wanted it to be.
It's not
To
where
be
it should
perfectly
be
honest.
by now, but it could be, or we should give up on it and
I
just,
think I think we should give up on it and move towards different technology.
yeah, me too.
I think the idea of crops as fuel was a neat idea
Hmm.
up until the point where we really started seeing the advancement of different renewable technologies and even the advancement of electric technologies.
Right.
So really, at the time, if let's say the world stopped at, essentially 1996 level technological advance levels, I think it would be a great idea.
Right.
But in 2022, I don't think it's a great idea.
We
And the
don't, we don't,
reason why
yeah.
is that we have better technology for, electric vehicles that's going to allow us to use food, arable land that we're using for fuel as for food.
Yeah.
And that's the difference is that I think that in the 90s it was a novel idea, but I think it unfortunately is going to go by the wayside because with the advent of better electrical technology and the advent of
Yeah.
better power storage and batteries, it's just not going to be the same. And I would argue too that as we look at different combustion technologies,
Yeah.
that also goes by the wayside. Like for example, looking at hydrogen combustion engines, for example.
Geothermal, like desalinization. Like these are multi-pronged purposes that come from nature. I love it. We got to stop burning things for our fuel. It's antithetical to what we're trying to
I mean, if
accomplish.
you think about it, if you think about it this way, we are concerned about rising ocean levels, but if you were
Yeah.
to number one desalinate ocean water for arable, for arable farmland, so
Yeah.
that way you like they do in Israel, and number two, use nuclear power to not just desalinate, but to create liquid hydrogen, so that way you
Yeah.
can have hydrogen combustion engines. Suddenly, every place on the coast is prime real estate for essentially hydrogen refineries that
Uh-huh.
allow you to ship liquid hydrogen off to hydrogen combustion engines. The reality is that until you're able to produce enough electricity at a constant level that is going to constantly supply, you're still going to have the need for some type of a combustion engine. Now,
You're
the thing
always
that
going to have a need for gas and oil. It's to reduce it to a point of luxury
not
and not necessity.
not necessarily anymore, and that's the thing is that for now, yes, for the foreseeable future, yes, gas and oil are definitely going to still be a need,
Do you know how many
and especially in
oils?
heavy industries. But with when you look at different combustion engine types, like for example, hydrogen combustion, remember we've developed battery technology and electric motor technology, and so at this point, what you're looking at is you're not even looking at these combustion engines being direct drive shaft propellers of your
Right.
heavy equipment. You're looking at them being
Chargers.
what turns a generator in order to charge your battery.
Right.
And so you still have the glories of the combustion engine keeping you powered up and keeping you going,
Mhm.
but now you have something that's only burn off as water and water vapor. And yes, you will still need some level of petroleum products in order to
Right.
keep the engine lubed up and working. But
Sure.
even still, there might be some places where that might not necessarily be the case anymore. Like especially if you
Right.
can figure out like graphene in a lot of cases is a better lubricant.
Or
And so
plant-based oils, or even like an
exactly.
avocado extract. There's all these things. Coconuts.
There's
They make pesticides out of coconuts. Like you
Mhm.
can do amazing things with plant-based products. Yeah, I'm just saying that there will always be a portion of the population that uses a petroleum product, either in their preservatives for their foods or for a luxury item that they own. You know what I
I
mean?
think and that's this was a thought that I was looking at yesterday. It's people wonder, it's like, well, you just want petroleum to go away because it's evil.
No,
No, not
no,
necessarily.
no.
Because there's when you look at I want single use petroleums to go away. I want
Right.
I want things that are going to be rough, rugged, and stick around for a while. Like, for example, as a shooter, like there's a lot of pieces of my rifle that are polymer. Like I
Mhm.
need rough, tough plastics. I want, like I was bringing in my groceries the other day, and rather than having like a bunch of plastic bags, I've got these giant,
Tote.
plastic
Yes.
totes that are collapsible that I literally just pop up, push out, and then I throw all my groceries in, haul them inside.
Yep.
I'm not using bags to haul things back and forth, single-use bags. I'm using
Yep.
this rough tumble plastic, and one day it's going to break, and my expectation is that I send that off to be recycled, and I pick up another rough tumble plastic thing that I can haul my stuff around with.
Recycling's
And
dead,
that's
Jeffrey. Nobody does it anymore. Sorry.
uh, and that's what's so funny is like, there's some of these what I'm calling, modernized old ways. Like, for example, uh, being somebody who can't have milk,
Right.
or I can only have it like very sparingly in certain things.
Oh yeah.
It's a bummer because, when I finally found something that I liked, which was Costco's oat milk, the packaging was entirely recyclable. Like the cardboard case, break it down, recycle it. When I was finished with the milk, I could rinse out the carton, fold it flat, recycle it.
Right.
But then they stopped taking that as recyclable.
Right.
So now it's like this thing that, I bought that was going to be recyclable is no longer recyclable. So I ended up spending a couple $100, and I got myself some glass jugs and something that I can make my own milk with. Now I got to figure out my recipe
Right.
and get it right. So that's what I'm going to be tuning with later today, is trying to figure out if I, trying to figure out what my recipe is.
I love that. I love that, Jeffrey.
But essentially now it's like I've got a self-contained system where I will literally be able to make my own oat milk, my own rice milk, my own coconut milk if I want, and that's perfectly fine, and that way it's like, I'm using a glass.
It's so much more than fine, man.
I'm using these glass jugs that are, going to be completely reusable. Well, why glass jugs? It's like, think about what your grandparents used to do for milk. Your great grandparents. They had a milkman show up with glass jugs.
They still do. It's called Oberweis in Chicago. The best.
It's Smith Brothers. It's Smith Brothers out here.
I love it. Sorry. I know you don't do milk, but my morning is based on it. And I tried that Fairlife stuff, which was like I tried the oat milk creamers, I tried the almond milk, I tried all of the milks, and I can't do it. It's just natural milk within reason. I can't have a whole lot, but I can have like a cup a day.
Dude, like, you have no idea what I would do if there was something I could do in order to have, actual milk again.
Right. Like, I can't have pasta, it's like deadly for my body. But I found these little $1.39 packages of fiber, like pumpkin fiber. It's like condensed pumpkin fiber. I put that in my homemade pasta sauce, and I was like, well, I want some pasta. Holy cow, the pasta didn't stay long enough in my body to have an effect. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I got to eat pasta and bread, and it just went, whoop, bye. And I was like, fuck yeah.
The pasta that I found that's actually been really great is chickpea pasta.
Ah, I like the durum.
Bonza.
I like the durum.
Bonza. Oh, I love durum too. Don't get me wrong. But this Bonza, this Bonza is the chickpea pasta. It's actually really great.
It is actually.
When it says cook it for 8 minutes, I mean, like at 8 minutes, you pull that motherfucker out.
Right. Yeah, because that pasta I made was like mashed potatoes, not quite mashed. It like cooked instantly. Like the water wasn't even boiling at a full boil yet, and the pasta was done. And I was like, I don't know I don't eat a lot of pasta, so I'm not very good at. I make homemade pasta a lot. If I'm gonna eat pasta and make a homemade sauce, like here's a breaking news for you. Warming up pasta sauce that comes out of a jar and pasta that's pre-made isn't cooking, it's warming.
Case, I warm a lot of stuff up, and that's perfectly fine.
That is
I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things is like, there are some things for convenience. Oh yeah. When Debbie sits down and makes a homemade pasta sauce, it's fucking incredible. But, when you are limited on time, you have to do what you can. And I'm not saying I go out and get ragu, but at the same time, I'm also not, spending a premium on something that has something in Italian that I can't pronounce either.
Right. I bought I bought 10 big cans of tomato sauce because I was going to make
Mhm.
tomato pasta sauce. It was 2 for 1, and instead of buying me 10 and charging me 5, she got me 20 and charged me for 10. So I had 20 jars of pasta, like tomato sauce. So I have to learn how to make, and I got mason jars, and yeah, I just make sauce. I put it in my cabinet, or I had it in my fridge actually. And yeah,
Mhm.
when I wanted pasta, but then I stopped eating pasta because it hurt my body. So I wanted to make chicken, whatever. I don't know. I like the sauce, hate the pasta. But I love that you made oat milk. That is so cool. We need to do that. That's how we get
Oh.
rid of these preservatives and additives into our stuff, because it's just they put it in the stuff to make it last longer until it gets to us. But we don't need that stuff in it if we make it at the point of us, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know why
Exactly.
people want ready-made things. I understand if you're at work and you're having a lunch, you want something you can just heat in the microwave, but you can't live your life like that on the go like that. We weren't built for the fast food was made for fast moments, not for every moment. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and I think one of the other things too that we have to look at, is that there are certain things that work as preservatives that we've kind of lost touch with, like for
Yeah.
example salt or citrus. Those are things that do great at killing bacteria or inhibiting its growth, and then when you
Right.
cook it, everything goes away and you're left with a perfectly good thing. I think that some of that is starting to come back into some of that mentality. There's some stuff you can get at Costco that's absolutely great.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it is amazing, and it has next to no preservatives in it. Or they're moving towards things like sea salt water, or
Yeah.
using citrus as a way of preserving things, and it's fantastic.
It is. Instead of falsifying it by like adding a carb and calling it light because you removed a sugar, just give us a little less of the organic product, like
Right.
there's ways to do it. And I love that we're starting to pay attention to our food again,
Mhm.
like I really honestly think that McDonald's, there's that commercial. When was the last time you were in a drive-through? When was the last time you bought a fresh fruit or vegetable through the drive-through? I don't go to drive-throughs. I order Instacart. So I just throw oranges in there. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like all I can think of now is that one time that somebody at a grocery store did that, where they packaged fruit like they did meat,
Right.
and then somebody added a boneless sticker to it. I'm like, I mean, that's what I think of when I think of like drive up, like that fast food fruit and
Yeah.
vegetables. Like, hey, is this banana going to be boneless?
Right. But I think McDonald's would have healthier stuff if they realized that we are leaning towards healthier products,
Like, and I think that's one of those things where, uh, yeah, they definitely tried at one point, but they really did a bad job of it.
They really
And
did a bad job putting 76 ingredients into a vegetarian burger so you could say it was a vegetarian burger, but defying every other law of nutrition to do it was gross. Burger King,
like,
just gross.
that's one of those things, like the Impossible Whopper,
Ah.
and Impossible or Beyond. Like, if you look at it pound for pound, that stuff usually has more things that are worse for you than a fucking hamburger.
Yeah, just eat the
And
hamburger.
I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that the hamburgers at I'm not saying that the hamburger at McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's or wherever is any better.
Right.
And that's the thing. Is I'm talking about what I buy from a grocery store versus buying Beyond or Impossible, and that's the real honest truth.
Uh-huh.
And so the thing is that do I want plant-based options to be available for people? Absolutely. Like, there's some really great, plant-based options out there that taste good. And when I'm not in the mood for a greasy ass burger that's gonna, make me
Right.
shit myself later, maybe I'll try something that's, a vegetable and go that route.
That's the important thing to understand. That big greasy burger isn't your only option every day now anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could have a meatless Monday, and see how that goes. Because I'll tell you, once you start realizing the different things you can use in a meatless meal, you're going to want more days to try meatless products,
For me, I recognize that like I go in phases.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I don't ever go like completely meatless, but there will be days where I'm just like, I need some fucking plant material in my stomach. Like I need
Right.
something like that, and then that's what I'll do is I'll get something like that in my system.
In the time it takes you to listen to this ad, almost 3 million gallons of water will have flowed over the deck at Niagara Falls. And when that deck needs to be protected from all that water, it's sealed with America's recognized brand in water protection, Thompson's Water Seal. Oh look, another 100,000 gallons. Weather protected, water sealed. Thompson's Water Seal. Trust the seal. Available at a retailer near you.
But I'm the opposite way. I'm like, I want a burger right now. Like, I just want a pound of bacon right now, and you're not going to stop me. I don't, there's what is that? Definitions don't exist. Absolutes don't exist. So I'm never going to say I'm never going to, and I'm going to enjoy it when I have it, right? I'm not going to kill myself because I'm eating what's available to me, but I do want it to be the best version of what I could be eating. I went to Cracker Barrel, right? And I looked at I was looking at the menu and I was like, I really want a hamburger. Maybe I should get the chicken fried steak. And the lady came to the table and she's like, what can I get you? And I was like, could I get the grilled chicken salad? And the lady set it down and my friend looked at me. And I'll tell you, his thought wasn't like, that's weird. He started asking me about what he's eating now. Like, he's telling me, like, is this good? I had frozen pizza and I have to tell him, well, that's got a fruit, that's got a cheese, that's got a, it's got all the ingredients that you would want for a balanced meal, and he's like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, no, it's true. You get everything you need in your balanced meal. The only thing you're getting in addition to that is the additives and preservatives that they put in there to make sure it was fresh when it got to you. And he likes that. But, like even the waitress was like, you're ordering a salad? Like in Florida, Pensacola, you're ordering a salad? It was delicious. It was great, My body felt amazing.
And that's one of those things, like, we all just have to recognize where we're at, too. And some people, they're going to want more plant material. Some people want more meat. And sometimes you're going to fluctuate, you're going to go through stages where you're like, oh, yeah, I need some more plant material. Oh, I need some more meat. And that's just part of the way the human body works.
I'm putting them together right now. Like I'm having a salad and frozen burritos, or like a salad and pasta, and I'm combining it now, and it's so cool. It's just so cool to. It's not that I've reached an age where I need more of this stuff. It's just that my body has always needed this balanced diet, and I've never taken the time to do it because I've always used fast food as a crutch to get through the moment. You know what I mean? And I finally have the time to make that better, to make my diet better, to make myself. I'm in a relationship with myself. I'm self-dating. And so all of the joy that I would give onto a partner, I give unto myself. And my diet is one of those things.
Yeah, or, me being the smartass that I am, I'm in a relationship with myself and tend to go fuck myself a lot.
Oh, I do that. I do that too. I do that. Well, not nutritionally, just in every other way possible.
I mean, that's pretty much me in every possible way. Right. So, but I mean, the reality is that, we have to be more open about, the fact that, like this weird fucking, like, this weird time where you have people screaming at each other to eat more plants or eat more meat and this, that, and the other. It's like, how about y'all listen to what your body's screaming for and you just go with that, and if for you it's more plants, go with that. If it's more meat, go with that. All I can say is that everybody's body has a different equilibrium point and you have to figure out what yours is. And you have to be smart and healthy about it.
That's right. Yeah, you're not me and I'm not you. We have different dietary systems. Why would I judge you for how you're eating? Why would you judge me for how I'm eating? You know what I mean?
It'd be like you telling me to have more milk. Oh, fuck you. That's gonna hurt.
Right. My buddy's telling me that, my friend's telling me that I'm going to die because I drink too much milk. And I'm like, oh, that's the guy with leukemia.
Right. It's, or, or you got the vegan who tells you that you need to eat vegan because it's the healthier option. Yet, they're absolutely miserable. They're literally eating fucking Lay's and Oreos.
Right.
And it's like, look, you can tell me to eat vegan all you want, but you're not convincing me that this is the better option. What you're showing me is that you're miserable by eating vegan.
Right.
You're not getting any better. And I don't know that it's necessarily the vegan diet so much as it is the quality of what you eat. And that's the difference.
I made biscuits one Thanksgiving, and my friend was like, these are great. And he had another one. These are great. And he had another one. He's like, these are great. The next day, he's like, I finished those rolls, a whole cake pan full of rolls. And I was like, I'm so proud of you. And he was like, why? And I was like, because those are the gluten-free. I didn't have any like regular flour. So I used my gluten-free. And he was like, really? That's gluten-free? He was like, yeah. I got to try more gluten-free. And I was like, yeah, it's not depriving you. It's just a different version of something,
and that's, and that's one of those things, like, for example, like, Debbie got me this Nordic baking book. And one of the things about it is that, they used a variety of different flours, different grains. And, it's you made different breads based on what you had available to you.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of this comes from. It's not that, you shouldn't have, I mean, for some people it's you shouldn't have gluten, period. But it's the idea, there's also the idea there too, that it's like, you can branch out and you can do different things. Now, this is where I'm going to caveat all of this, especially growing up with, especially like living with people who have, certain mental needs around their food. For example, like texture is a big issue, taste is a big issue, and that's another one of those things where, call it what you will, but in a way, if for those of us who have, who like to have diverse palates, who choose to have diverse palates, we can't single out and we can't, deny the fact that there are people out there that have issues with any number of things. Like, for example, like, I can understand why some people would have issues with certain gluten-free things. Like, the texture can be sandy, it can be coarse, like it can taste drier than any number of things.
Sure.
And for me, like, I can be like, okay, this isn't what I expected, but I'm okay with this, or I'm good with this, or, oh, hey, this actually turned out to be awesome. But that change in, this is what I'm used to, this is my thing, and you get something new in there, and it completely, can derail a person. And
agreed.
For some people, it's like you literally have to set up the expectation. Hey, I didn't have this, it's going to be this. And then, they'll try it. And if they have it, great. And if they can't have it, great. And that's what it boils down to is that everybody, like you said, my body's not yours, your body's not mine. And the idea that we have to, tell each other what to do with them is just absolutely insane.
But that's also the point of what I'm trying to get at. I love this whole hour about making your own food, knowing what's in your own food. Every baker can counter for that drying grittiness in their gluten-free meals. I've been to bakeries where they make eclairs that would blow your mind if you counter for it, if you put thought into it, if you've made it 4 or 5 times. Every time the first time you make something, it's going to be gross because it's not tailored for you. It's a general recipe that somebody else made for them. But if you find a simple recipe, like a banana bread recipe, and make that in your parameters, it will be so amazing, and it'll be unique, and other people will be like, that's amazing. You know what I mean? It's
my
different.
Personal favorite was somebody made the point of adults aren't picky eaters. They only buy the things that they like to eat.
Right.
And then complain that their kids are picky eaters. And I sat there for a second. I was like, yeah, that's actually pretty accurate. I buy the things that I want to eat. And then if somebody doesn't want to eat that, it's like, what are you, a picky eater?
Right.
Wait, what am I doing?
We all want different, we all want a variety, but we make that. We don't spend the time making it. And that's why I'm saying when you go to Burger King or McDonald's, you're buying somebody else's version of flavor and you want your own, and you can do that. Like I can my own chili beans. I think it's an amazing thing because I can add the spice I want. Hey, do you know, I tried making this new recipe. I filled my deer meat with pickles, but all I got was dildo.
I did that to Emily one time. Emily
You
makes
filled
these,
Emily with dildo?
yes. No.
I love you, Emily. I'm sorry. She's one of my favorite people that I don't know.
So Emily would make these dill biscuits, and they were absolutely amazing. And so we were over there one time, and she was with an ex and his kid, and we're all sitting there, and I'm just kind of like my brain is churning because I see dill biscuits, and of course I'm going dildo, dildo. And so we're sitting there, and I was just like, "Hey, can I try your dildo?" And the kid snickers, and Emily's just like, "Oh!" Everybody starts laughing, and then they're like, "Wait, look at the kid. What do you? How do you know what that is?"
Right, that starts a whole nother conversation. Yeah.
Oh, it was so funny.
So should that be dill, dough, or just should there be a
Doe
pause
dill.
in there? No.
It's we go with the European standard and call it Doe Dill.
Dildo.
Doe Dill.
Dildo. Man, I had a lot in my note, and I don't think we got to any of it other than the wheat thing. I think that's so cool. Hey, did you know that 5 West Point graduates, including 2 football players, died from fentanyl? That's
Okay.
Wait, that's in Fort Lauderdale. Let's see.
Yeah, and so they were on spring break.
Fentanyl laced cocaine. Yeah.
Cocaine laced with fentanyl. Now,
damn boy.
Yeah, so this is where like the underground market is really something terrifying to me when you think about like because right now it's like it is a dangerous time to be out buying street drugs.
Right.
You've got everything being laced with fentanyl.
Yeah.
And that shit, like even in a hospital setting, just to keep this in mind for people, that shit is hard to control in a hospital setting, having the proper drugs and the proper staff.
Right.
Let alone on your own, not knowing the quality of what you're getting. Like, and that's what's terrifying is that stuff is fucking potent to the point where it'll collateral damage officers like that are having to deal with it.
Yep.
So this is what people need to understand is like this is like one of the most dangerous times, especially as kids, like, growing up, we always heard the horror stories of, weed laced with PCP, weed laced with, any number of things. PCP
right. Wiki stick.
But
loved Wiki stick.
But now, having stuff laced with fentanyl, like I've out here, I've heard of, street weed being laced with fentanyl. I've heard of, fentanyl is a huge problem out here.
It's a huge problem everywhere. That's kind of my point.
That's terrifying. This is where, one of those things where it's like, as much as I don't like the idea of necessarily having a bunch of government regulation, there are times and places where it is somewhat important. And, at least out here in the legal weed market, your weed can only contain weed, no pesticides, no other things.
Right.
Like that's, and that's one of the great things about like having, this service out here is that, I'm never going to have to worry about going into a store out here and worry that, something I'm picking up is going to be laced with something else.
Right. This is the biggest call for legalization of all drugs, is just to stop this. Legalized cocaine would fix this. What I mean? It would stop this instantly. The only reason these kids from West Point died is because you made cocaine illegal and enticing and dangerous all at the same time.
And it got and then it got cut with something. And that's the problem. All of those
who
things,
did the cutting? That's the issue. It's always going to be cut, but can you trust the person and what they're using to cut it with? Cocaine is a very strong fucking drug,
Well, and that was the thing too, is that
crack.
You had.
Sorry.
Well, even back in the day, you had what was it? That was always what was
baby laxative?
There were people. There were people that would lace cocaine with liquid plumber.
Oh yeah. Oh
Like that's like, you think about that, that's fucking insane right there.
yeah. I think that's what led to crack, was that they started throwing all this weird stuff in cocaine. So you wanted to cook it out and make it pure and just have cocaine again. And then people were like, I don't want to cut this rock up. It's too hard. Just smoke it. Holy shit. I can't feel my body. Give me more.
Yeah, and so like you think about where drugs are at. Like this is actually like, everybody was like, oh, this is a scary time back in the day, and it's like
Yeah.
apparently it's child's play compared to shit laced with fentanyl these days.
Right. Fentanyl on its own was made to be strong. Heroin on its own was made to be pure. You put those two together, you got strong as pure. That's bad.
Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, people who fucking smoked opium or used opium never, got most of the same effects,
right?
and none of this shit.
Right. They wrote
End
books
up
like
asleep.
Sir Conan Doyle did,
Right. So that's what's crazy about it is that, it is a weird market right now in underground drugs, because it is a deadly market in underground drugs. And you look at when you look at especially opioids in and of itself,
mm-hmm.
we're not not looking at like cocaine or weed or anything, but you look at the opioid epidemic and how it played into the rise of heroin usage
and terrorism.
It's absolutely wild how now this has changed to people just trying to get their fix from anything, and that includes fentanyl.
Wow. What's the guy's name? We killed him. Al Qaeda. Wait, no.
Bin Laden.
Bin Laden's money came from opioid fields. Like the opioid crisis here.
Opium, yeah.
The opioid crisis here was funded. 9/11. That's what funded 9/11.
Yeah, poppy.
Kind of.
Yep.
In a way, you know what I mean? Poppies.
Oh yeah.
Because that's where they grow, and that's who harvests them, is terrorists. That's who takes over the lands that they're on. That's the trade, unless you're drilling for oil. You know what a cool new invention is, Jeffrey? It's so cool.
What?
There's a pillow, a hugging pillow that has a bladder in it that inhales and exhales like a real person. And it's supposed to use to cure anxiety, especially in like students with anxieties. I think that's
an interesting one,
isn't it? And then when you think about it breathing next to you, don't you think that's a little creepy? Could have put that in something.
That's where my brain went initially. I'm like, this makes me feel uncomfortable.
Right. Well, my initial thought was, does it have a vagina? But that's me. You know what I mean? If you can combine the two, I don't really need to date ever again.
Perfect. I mean, I'm sure you could probably shove a fleshlight in that thing.
Oh, yeah. I gotcha. Something to have, something to hold. But I think that's such a cool idea. And my friend Katie Anderson had that on Twitter. And I told her, I was like, I don't know if it's a hugging thing, but if you put that in a teddy bear, I'd be all over that shit,
Yeah, then suddenly the teddy bear just like grabs you and holds you and never lets you go.
I'm okay with that. Ah, Jeffrey.
The clingy teddy bear.
So I don't know if you know who this is. One of my favorite people on the planet, and my personal friends, Hailey Bieber, was hospitalized. She suffered a blood clot and in her brain. And she was taken to the hospital, and it was more of a bigger deal than it sounds. Her body passed it on its own. But I wanted to throw that story in to say I never had reason to feel compassion for Justin Bieber, but I know what it's like to have your spouse in the hospital with a brain condition. And I really feel for him. And man, I hope he just understands the love that he has. And I hope they realize that could have been a lot worse. And I want to say to Hailey, congratulations on surviving it. You're a beautiful person, I guess. I didn't know you existed until this story.
This, in the past 2 weeks, I've known 3 people, that have had to bury people, thanks to COVID. And you don't really think about how lucky some people are to survive and how lucky some people are that they just barely escape with their life, if you can consider it lucky. I think one of the things that we're going to have to address in this country is how do we get enough healthcare providers post COVID, because that's really a huge problem for all of us at this point, is the lack of sustainable healthcare. And unfortunately, what you saw during the pandemic burnt out a lot of people in healthcare, and it's really unfortunate that that's what we're going to be dealing with for the foreseeable future. And you know, and that's, one of the things that we have to really think about too is we may not necessarily like certain people, but you can still be empathetic and compassionate towards, hard times,
Oh, yeah.
and very stressful situations in a person's life. We can go back to shitting on Justin Bieber later, but it's, there's enough, there should still be enough humanity there that when somebody has to deal with something terrifying, a crisis of sorts, that can put aside being an asshole long enough to say, hey,
Yeah.
hope your other part gets better.
Public Access America.
It's always funny because, like, especially because as libertarians, we get a ton of shit, even amongst other libertarians.
I think political philosophy is a lot like religion, and where there's moments you have to go on faith and trust what somebody else is saying.
The main focus is just like less dependence on the government, because, well, we've seen how that's gone.
And you don't have to do that if you think about it in a human way.
More dependence on connections with each other.
You can always bring it back to what would one human do for another? What would 100 do for 100?
People looking out for people.
Find Public Access America anywhere you find your favorite podcast every Sunday and Thursday. And join the chat on YouTube at Public Access America every Sunday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Communities looking out for community.
Public Access America. History in the making, making history in the making, in the making, in the making, in the making, in the making. It's one of the scariest things when your spouse is hospitalized. Like, I feel for anybody that goes through that. I feel for anybody that gets into a relationship, because I know there's going to be a point where that is a situation. And I feel so much empathy for both of them. I'm so glad it was just a simple thing for her. But like I said, I don't really know much about them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to know that I have something in common with him. Let's see. Hey, San Francisco's first tiny home village for the homeless people is open, with each home costing about an average of $15,000. What they did was they had a park that they turned into a homeless sanctuary where people would be safe, like a sanctuary city for homeless people. And they then turned that park into a tiny home village with electricity and cabinets and a dining room. And I think it's really neat. I think it's a great idea, I can't wait to see how that goes.
It's fantastic,
Yeah.
and that's, I personally would like to see things done a little bit differently. I think one of the things that people are going to have to embrace are things like high-rise villages and things like that.
Yeah.
And better construction, more solid construction for things like that. It's like, yeah, it's going to be fucking concrete, sure, but soundproof the shit out of it, and then make sure that you have enough space for people, make sure you have enough services within that building, however you decide to do it. So that way, your services are located in one part of the building, away from people who can get in, and, locked down really nicely.
Right.
And then that way it's, you're better, like those central services, whether you decide to go with the tiny home model or, the high-rise apartment model, there's definitely a way to do it.
Or transition. I think the tiny home duplex is a start. I don't think it should be considered storage. I like your idea that it should be inclusive, that it should meet the needs of the people that are using it. But I do like your idea of even then transitioning to a more permanent high rise, or, a community with the stores. I mean, I just think that's neat. If you meet people's needs where they are, you're going to find little communities like this.
You think about that. You have the living facilities above, and let's say you have the food bank. you have the food bank down on the first floor.
You have a
even.
post office that also is your bank account. You have the Walgreens, which is also your urgent care. You have the grocery store, which is also your medical needs, pharmacy, whatever. You have stores that could double as things. You have institutions that could double as things. Your post office could be where you sign up for your Medicare or your Obamacare, or you have somebody that helps you signing up for what it is you need, because you don't know, and you don't know how to sign up for it. But having somebody there that helps you, that changes everything.
Having the technology there that people need in order to sign up for some of this stuff.
Right. And I want to say I'm really happy with whatever community this is in, because in Florida we chase the homeless people out of parks. You created a fucking community out of yours for people that needed a community. So thank you for that. And I want to say also to the San Francisco Gazette, if you put a paywall up, I can't fucking do much about supporting your stories. So, get past that. I don't know what to do about that. I know you need the money, but it can't all be behind a paywall.
Well, and that's the thing, is like all these news sites are behind paywalls. And even then it's like you got a fuck ton of advertisements.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it? Are you going to advertise so that way I can get the paper? Or is it just going to be paywall? Because if I'm going to pay for it, then I don't want the fucking ads.
Right. That's it. And I can't go around subscribing to the gazettes and little newspapers of the world. At some point, something has to be free. One of the stories that you're promoting should at least be free while you're promoting it on social media. I understand once it's not being promoted, it should go behind a paywall, but you can't promote it and then advertise on it and paywall it all at the same time and expect people to read it or talk about it on a national level.
We got the same issue with the newspaper out here.
Yeah, I know.
That it's behind a paywall and there's a shit ton of advertisements on the site. And then the other part is that a lot of the times the fucking writing is like 8th grade level. It's like,
that's the other thing.
I'm not paying, fucking $10 a month for this. This is not worth it to me.
That's right. And you don't know until you subscribe, and then you find out it's all garbage. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do it.
If I'm going to pay $10 a month to have an article surrounded by ads, it's going to be the worst $10 that I've ever spent.
Right. And I want to know if that's worth it before I spend it. I'm not going to spend it to find out it's garbage and I'm committed for a year,
Right.
Mm-mm.
And on top of that, it's like it gets to the point where like most of the community articles, like if there's something really important that the community needs to know, you can't even fucking access it. It's like,
that's right.
They literally, like, here for the longest, initially anything related to the coronavirus was a free article. So you could literally just open up anything related to coronavirus and read it from there.
Fucking liberals. Your access to information astounds the conservatives around you. You know what I mean?
So you put it behind a paywall, and then you're like, why are people watching Fox News?
Dumb? Yeah. Marco Rubio was like, we need to increase domestic oil. I'll end on this one as far as me. And I wanted to explain to him, domestic gas and oil, it's never been in more production under any other administration. Like, we didn't reduce it after Trump. We're still going at full capacity. The only way we could increase it is if we encroached on state parks and state preserves and lands. And that would mean you're not a conservative because you don't believe in conservator of the land. You know what I mean? And I wanted to ask Marco Rubio, do you know where hunters hunt? Do you know the lands that Americans use for their sustenance? Gun owners hunt. Where do hunters hunt? Like, don't take that land away from them if you don't need to. We're not in this crisis because we're not taking in Russian oil. We're in this crisis because gas and oil knows that we already predicted there would be an increase in prices. So they increased prices to make up the revenue they're losing in their investments in Russia. It's not going up because it needs to go up. It's going up because everybody says it's going to go up.
And that's and for example, like, we're the number one oil producer in the world. Been that way since I think 2015.
Exactly.
I want to say was when we crossed that. We produce 18 billion barrels per day, or 18 million barrels per day.
Russia, 5
of oil, and like 11 million barrels of distillates, crude oil distillates, and stuff like that. Like, we are the largest producer, period. It's just that, we are a capitalist market and we sell our oil to other places rather than supplying Americans first.
Well, it goes onto a global. It goes into and the global prices take over from that. And the other thing is the Keystone Pipeline would not help this. It's not the quality oil we would use, and it wouldn't be done. It wouldn't be done.
And here's the thing: is we need to clarify something. The Keystone Pipeline exists and is functioning. It's that XL diversion point that they were wanting to add on.
Okay.
So. That's it.
And like you said, pipelines don't produce oil; it only transports it.
Exactly, and that was the issue. Is that, what would that? You would need to have a bigger and better pipeline all the way down to the Gulf in order to get, quote unquote, more production done. And everybody kept going, "Oh, this is going to cost jobs. It's going to cost jobs," and it's like the whole fucking thing made 40 permanent jobs.
Right.
That's it. It's like, yeah, sure, there was going to be some work for a little bit while they put in this pipeline,
1,000
but it wasn't
workers.
permanent. 1,000 workers, but it wasn't permanent jobs.
Right.
And that's the problem. Is that it's not like those permanent. It's not like those pipeliners were just magically going to appear and then magically going to disappear. Those pipeliners went to work on another project. Period. End of story.
And this is to transfer oil sand. Right, not oil,
tar sands,
but tar sands, and then it's processed, but you can't use that in your cars. Like, we don't use that here,
Yeah, it gets processed down into different products and distillates, and essentially used as what they call bunker fuel. And it's because it's dirty, it's nasty, and that's essentially what like the maritime shipping industry uses in order to. And if, in case you haven't noticed, like, we have a problem with our ports not being able to offload ships as it is. So
well, guess who else is price gouging in this day and age? It's the people shipping everything.
and I mean, the reality is that when you have an organization like OPEC, oil prices are artificially high because these countries are not producing at a rate that would allow for the lowest possible price.
Right.
They are literally agreeing to what the price is going to be and then taming their production based on that.
They're colluding, which is against the law in America to do. If
you can't have in America, you can't have cartels.
Right.
But because it's an oil industry, we literally function because the price function simply works the way that it does because of a cartel in another part of the world.
And that just means we have an Arab dick in our mouth. To get oil. Like, we gotta find it more important to not support tyranny and move to green energy than it is to suck a dictator's dick.
Energy diversification, like we've talked about multiple times. It's like, yes, there's going to be the need for oil, and we need to make sure that those demands are being met here. But at the same time, too, if you have a diverse energy source, a diverse power storage source, and a diverse usage source, things like this don't fuck with your daily life as bad.
Boom. Love it. Hey, do you have any just the tips before we sign off? Don't eat the yellow snow.
Don't eat the yellow snow is always a good one. I would say my just the tip is make sure you do like regular maintenance, especially for yourself. It's important. Keeps your head in the right spot.
I love that. The other day, I shaved my body top to bottom. I never felt better. Never felt better. Thanks for being here, Jeffrey.
That razor blade.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because the bottom had an issue. Thanks for being here, Jeffrey. I love you.
Love you too.
Yay. Okay. And.
To those who would tear the world down, we will defeat you. This is our moment. This is our time. To those who seek peace and security, we support you. Yes, we can. And to all those who have wondered if America's beacon still burns as bright, tonight we prove once more that the true strength of our nation comes not from the might of our arms or the scale of our wealth, but from the enduring power of our ideals, democracy, liberty, opportunity, and unyielding hope.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and
nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life.
Ask not.
Yes, we can.
What your country can do for you.
I have a dream.
Ask what you can do for your country.
I, poor little children,
Yes, we can.
one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression.
In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Welcome to Public Access America.
Yes, we can.
Sunday live streams on YouTube.
I wanted to run out of that tunnel for my dad.
On Twitter,
What?
Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Smart Radio, Public, and Spotify.
Yes, we can.
Public Access America. History in the making. Making history in the making.
Only at Metro by T-Mobile, you can upgrade to 5G and get more. More choices with the largest selection of free 5G phones, like the Samsung Galaxy A13 5G, and more 5G coverage on the T-Mobile network. Only at Metro. Most affordable versus major prepaid brands with eligible port ID and plan plus tax. 5G not available in some areas. If congested, users greater than 35 gigabytes per month may notice reduced speeds, and Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus T-Mobile due to prioritization video at 480p.